A few years ago, I was in New York City waiting to see the world premiere of my play off Broadway, and I was having a meeting with the producing artistic director. When out of the blue he says, "Amparo, you are so Mexican."
No.
And you know, he was Cuban, so I needed to find out what he meant. Because I'm like, Mexican? Like, what's he talking about? He said, "You are obsessed with death." Oh. Yeah, isn't everybody? I mean, come on, it's the one thing we're all gonna do. It's the one thing we are all going to really accomplish in this lifetime. So if I'm obsessed with that, well, okay, you know, you hear people going, what am I gonna be when I grow up? What's gonna be my major? He loves me not. You do all of the obsessing, but do you ask, when will I die? How will I die? Why do I die? And more important, why was I born? I'm one of those educators that believes that we should be teaching Death 301 beyond writing, arithmetic, and math. And it should at least be taught as you're leaving high school, and if you're going to college, definitely when you're in college, because the little ones already got it going on. They remember, they know all about it, and we're the ones that tell them, oh no, you weren't grown up once like you think you were. Oh no, you didn't see your grandmothers go. You know, we start that, and of course they need a primer course. That's what I'm thinking. So, it's obvious that I'm Mexican. I kind of worked on it tonight. Okay? So I can get Mexican like that. But what I was starting to wonder was, if I am obsessed with death, when and how did it happen? Well, it probably happened February 28th, 1970. It was my father's 40th birthday. And he wants to celebrate it at this little hamburger place at the edge of town, the GNR Drive-In. It's a family place, and he wants to take his little family with him. But I don't want to go. It's Sunday night. I want to watch Ed Sullivan. The Beatles are releasing their world premiere of the Let It Be video, or film at that point. So I don't want to go. So they come and they honk, and I remember clearly opening, because I'm at my grandmother's house. She was the only one that had a TV in our family. And I open the screen door and I go, "Let it be, okay?" I don't want to go to the murder. I didn't say that, but some part of me understood it. My father, it's a family place. 3 brothers show up. He knows them. My mother can't hear what's going on, but it appears that some argument starts. If you knew my father, that wasn't his thing. He was a charming fella. Did not like arguments. If anyone was ever running away from an argument, it'd be my father, but that's not happening on this particular day. He's saying to the people there, my mother can hear him saying, "Have respect, my family's here." 3 brothers, the youngest is 18, he pulls a knife out and stabs my father. If I became obsessed with death, that's probably the moment, even though I wasn't there, because I understood that anything can happen at any time, and for seemingly no good reason that reason knows not of. So, if I am obsessed with death, another time it could have possibly started to happen was June 4th, 1987. My firstborn, Alejandro, is getting ready to crown, and you heard some of the details. Of course, in my son's case, and David Rose is the dad, there was a crowd in the room, you know, that's going to be like who he's going to become, right? He's got family there, he's got friends, it's being captured, kind of like the audio tree this week of his live performance in Chicago. I mean, you know, I'm sure, you weren't selling tickets, were you, for you, David? Okay, good. So, it's a community event, a different community, but the same impulse of love and family. And it's a pernicious birth. I actually managed to do it in 3 hours, y'all.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he helped. And I think you helped too, huh, David? Yeah. So, but what happened there is that when you crown, that's the hardest part, as you were indicating. And we did the Bradley method too. And there was a midwife there, and it was at home. Is getting that head to come through that cervix. The cervix, if you don't remember your biology, it's the size of a pinhead. Yeah. And so my midwife later tells me that my son had the second largest head she had ever delivered, and by then she had delivered 500 babies. So to bring that glorious, brilliant mind to this world was a memorable moment. When his head crowned, jubilation, standing ovation, kind of like they do now when he pops into the stage, you know, even just to check the equipment. Wah! You know? But here's what happened. As everybody is so excited, oh look, so beautiful, da, 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 you know, that whole, I am having an experience like Brian just described, which is, it can only be a communication with him in that moment. Everything goes deeply silent. I see a picture of a funeral and an extraordinary sadness. And I'm thinking, whoa, this baby is experiencing his birth as a death. And then something, because I'm very intuitive, just said, log it. You know? Okay. So 3 years later, there's a little picture of him in the doorway there. 3 years later, we're having a typical morning experience, and he's playing on the floor with some toys. And suddenly I just know to look at him, and he's just like, you know, little, and nothing has happened. He's just playing with his toys. And so I said, Alejandro, what's the matter? And he says, I dreamed I died. And I said, you want to tell me about that? And he says, I was swimming in the big ocean. Well, first he said big river, actually. He said, I was swimming in the big river. Then I saw the White House. Then I was swimming in the big ocean. Then my head got bigger. Then my hand got bigger. Then I died. And he started crying. And without even, you know, I wasn't going into a reasoned place. I said, Alejandro, you're remembering being born. There was the moment that we both shared, that he was remembering clearly. And I have kept that forever because that's something I want to know is true. That when we experience a birth, it's a death. He was leaving something quite precious because I felt the sadness of that. And when we're saying goodbye to someone in this lifetime, they're being born. Kind of interesting. I don't know what all that's truly about. But if I am obsessed with death, partly it's because I am Mexican. Meaning we practice, at least when I was growing up, el luto. El luto is a very serious awareness of mourning and grief. And at the time, people would wear black, which was your understanding that they are not who they usually are right now. We knew to respect that. They weren't going to be themselves. They were going to act a little strange. They were not going to say the right thing. They were going to burst out crying. They might scream your head off. You would just give them space. You knew, and sometimes it would be days, sometimes it'd be weeks, sometimes it'd be years for some people. And then finally one day that black would come off, and they had joined back to the land of the living. Well, I'm in luto right now. You wouldn't have any way to know. Well, I mean, I'm wearing black, but it's stylish, I suppose. Because I've lost several friends this year, and one pretty recently, a month ago. And those of you that were here for the storytelling in August, the run-ins with the law, Corey Russell told an amazing story of transformation in this. We weren't in this space, but it was just literally 4 months ago. And when he and I were packing up at the end, we were having a conversation. And I said, hey, Corey, I'm going to be in Los Angeles from November 5th to the 10th. I need you to maybe house sit for me and take care of my dogs. He had done that before for me. And suddenly I just had one of those moments where we lock eyes. And he says, I can't commit. I don't know why. And I felt a deep sadness, like I did when my son was trying to be born, but I didn't understand it. And in fact, it was highly irrational because it almost felt like hurt feelings, but you know, I couldn't quite understand it. But now I get it, that it was one of those let it be, okay? Meaning, I care and love you enough that I don't want to leave you on the lurch because frankly, I'm going to be dead 6 days before that. Because that's what happened. And for me, like I said, I don't know what to make of all of this because it doesn't make accepting death any easier, but I do know one thing, that when I am obsessing about death, I'm never more myself than that, if that makes any sense. Because when we lose someone we love, something dies with them, and something new is immediately born. So as I was getting ready to put this story together, I had an interesting synchronicity, and I want to leave the evening tonight with that. Oh, chingao! That's another way I'm very Mexican. I love to cuss in Spanish. Chingao! Look at what happened. I paid $18 for these pinche glasses a week ago. I need some reading glasses. Does anybody have some that are reading, not prescription? And I hope I don't break them. That makes me so mad. I'm going back to CBS. Bien enojada como una mexicana que chingo. All right. So, some of us were here a couple weeks ago. We saw Yogananda's Awake, right? Anybody here in this room saw? If you haven't seen that documentary, please gift yourself with that. Pretty extraordinary. So I was reading this book again, and I've been doing it religiously. I'll do a chapter, like, complete. But something happened interesting yesterday. I stopped in the mid-page and just closed the book. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I think I'm sleepy, but not really. But today, this morning, I found this, and I thought, oh, well, here you go. So this is going to be the end of the evening, and I hope it ties in all the stories. And I need more light in here, even with reading glasses. Ching! Okay, no, stop. Stop. Okay. And I have 2 pairs of reading glasses.
You want a stronger pair?
Yeah.
These are 2 too.
Yeah. Don't you just hate that? Jeez. How's this? It's so attractive with 2, right? How does that work?
No, all right.
All right. Oh, yeah. Excellent. All right. So, this is Yogananda. And he's saying, one day I entered a cinema, a movie house, to view a newsreel of the European battlefields. The First World War was still being raged in the West. The newsreel presented the carnage with realism that I left the theater with a troubled heart. Lord, I prayed, why dost thou permit such suffering? To my intense surprise, an instant answer came in the form of a vision of the actual European battlefields. The scenes filled with the dead and dying far surpassed in ferocity any representation of the newsreel. Look intently, a gentle voice spoke to my inner consciousness. You will see that these scenes now being enacted in France are nothing but a play of chiaroscuro. Is that the word? I don't know what that means.
Chiaroscuro.
What is it?
Chiaroscuro, it's where light and dark are used to create illusions.
Perfect. They are the cosmic motion picture, as real and as unreal as the theater newsreel you have just seen. A play within a play. The heart was still not comforted. The divine voice went on. Creation is light and shadow both, else no picture is possible. The good and evil of Maya must ever alternate. If joy were ceaseless here in this world, would we ever desire another? Without suffering, he scarcely cares to recall that he has forsaken his eternal home. Pain is a prod to remembrance. The way of escape is through wisdom. The tragedy of death is unreal. Those who shudder at it are like an ignorant actor who dies of fright on the stage when nothing more has been fired at him than a blank cartridge. My sons are children of light. They will not sleep forever in delusion. And that's the quote that he heard in his vision. And then he ends by saying, although I had total scriptural accounts of Maya, they had not given me the deep insight that came with personal vision, and with this personal vision and the accompanying words of consolation. And I loved the synchronicity of this, because how I was going to end the story was to say that my guru, Ninkoli Baba, would say very simply that suffering and death bring us closer to God. That's why they exist. It doesn't take the pain away easily and quickly. But there's something about what my son was saying in that huge wisdom of his soul and that clarity of taking a body. Because, by the way, what was he swimming in? A river in my body for 9 months. Right? The White House, the little Clarksville white ranch house that he was born in, he actually had a clear understanding that he was coming into this existence in a little white house in freaking Clarksville. The ocean is the actual water breaking, right? Because there's a wave of water that brings the baby, whoop, like a surfer. And when his head popped out, his hand came with it. So he was there holding his own head for a whole minute before that last, whoa, you know? So this is a never-ending story. So I'll just end it here. I'm hoping there's been something for somebody here. There's this lovely young woman. Are you still here? Yes. We're looking at the clock, and I had promised them we would be done by 10, and now we're 3 minutes away from it. But I just want to share that she came up to me. She grew up in Peru.
Yeah. I was born in Peru.
In Peru, but she said that something about David's story combined with Michelle's story.
Yeah. Plus, I was in India and I read autobiography of her.
And
So,
read this.
it's a little
And this is her first time here, so she was saying there's something so perfect about that story with Michelle's story being her story, because her father stole her to bring her into this from Mexico, right?
from Peru. Yeah.
Even though she was from Peru, but you had to come through pinche Mexico, okay? You want to start with me or what? But what I love is that these stories can be, you know, they're not performances, as you probably noticed. They're raw, sometimes they run away with you. And sometimes just because you've been like, you know, the father of my child, I let you go on and on, okay, David Rose? Go! But it's so beautiful, because this is what is primitive about our brains and what we are geared. If you do all the research about stories, we sync up in a very supernatural way when we come together to tell stories this way. So I want to thank all the storytellers. Please come up here and take your picture with me once.